Darcey and Stacey Silva are identical twins from Connecticut who spent the better part of 8 years on TLC selling you one thing: the idea that two women could go through absolute hell and still come out okay because they had each other. Silva Strong. That was the tagline. That was the promise. In 2025, that promise expired. Both marriages gone at the same time, both husbands out. The show cancelled, the fashion brand with serious questions around it, the surgery is still happening while the men were already leaving, and Darcey Silva, 51 years old, posting a mermaid selfie captioned, "God told me, get away from G." This is not a story about bad luck or bad timing. This is a collapse that was already happening while they were still filming, and we're going to go through every moment that proves it. Stay with me. Before we get into the breakage, you need to understand what the product actually was, because it was never what it looked like on the label. Darcey and Stacey are twins, born September 23rd, 1974. They started House of 11 in 2010, named after their late brother Michael, who died of cancer at 27. Born May 11th, died July 11th. The number 11 runs through everything: the brand name, the wedding dates, the production company. Michael is the grief anchor, the emotional core that made the audience extend grace even when they probably shouldn't have. That part is real. The love for their brother is genuine, and I want to be clear about that before anything else. But here is what is real. Before TLC, House of 11 was not doing much. Their production company tried to launch a show called The Twin Life that never aired. They dropped 2 singles in 2018 and 2019 that nobody really paid attention to. And then Darcey got on season 1 of Before the 90 Days, flying to Amsterdam to chase a 26-year-old Dutchman named Jess Mister. And overnight, she was a star. Not because of the brand, not because of the music, because she cried in airports and chased a man who was clearly not that interested, and the whole country could not look away. The audience showed up for the heartbreak, and the entire business was built on that heartbreak not stopping. That is the first thing you need to understand about the collapse. It did not start in 2025. It started the moment the business model became dependent on Darcey being unlucky in love. Because at some point, the camera and the actual life stopped being different things. By 2025, there was no gap between the show and the disaster. They had become the same thing. And what had been entertaining for 8 years was now just real life with nowhere to hide. Jesse Mister, Tom Brooks, and Georgi Rusev. If you have watched any amount of this franchise, you already know those names. And if you lay those three relationships side by side, the time that stands out is not bad luck, it is consistency. Jesse Mister was 26 when Darcey flew to Amsterdam to meet him. He criticized her weight, her drinking, her emotions, her appearance on camera, regularly in front of millions of people.
I was like, I'm looking at a different woman now. So we'll order a big dress. Yeah, so it is not a thing. Well, there is no problem. That's my point. There is no problem.
Darcey described it later as toxic, said she walked on eggshells and she kept going back anyway. Then Tom Brooks, British, charming, vaguely wealthy in a way that never got fully explained. When it ended, Tom conducted the breakup over video chat, could not even give her conversation in person, and as his final contribution to her life, he asked her whether she had put on weight.
Don't think he cares anymore. But
that is the sentence. Not because of what it says about Tom, though it says plenty, but because of what Darcey did next, which was absorb it and go find the next one. Here's the part that does not get talked about enough. After both men were done with Darcey, Jesse and Tom actually connected and compared notes. Jesse's conclusion was that they had both been manipulated and played at the same time. That she had told him Tom was terrible and told Tom he was terrible, keeping both men suspicious of each other, suckling her at the same time. He called it almost professional. I'm not here to deliver a verdict on that, but when two men who dated the same woman independently land on the same story, that is worth nothing. What is also worth nothing is what Darcey did after Tom, because most people would take some time off, sit with it, maybe ask some hard questions about the pattern. Darcey went on television again, got cast again, found another younger European man, and brought the whole audience along for the next round as if the previous two had not just played out in front of millions of people. That is not a criticism, that is just the observation. The show needed the dysfunction to continue. Darcey needed the show, and so the cycle had every reason in the world to keep going. And then Georgi Rusev. who slid into Darcey's DMs in 2020 while still in another relationship. They got engaged, broke it off, got engaged again, broke up again, and then quietly with no cameras on November 11, 2023, their manifesting number, they married at her father's Connecticut estate. 15 guests, a secret.
I feel like I haven't been able to really celebrate it yet with everybody. You know, only some people that are really close to me, like close family and close friends. On our, you know, family members and stuff. No, so it's still like, you know, I want to be able to shout it to the world. So I guess we'll be able to soon.
Hard to keep it secret, and another thing is since the quarantine, we moved to live together, and always we are around. Always, whatever we do, we are around.
We're like twins now.
If I make some phone call, or if I, you know, like she know all the time what I'm doing. So for me, it was really hard to make all these plans for the proposal. And another thing was during the quarantine, still was quarantine. So many places, I mean, nothing was still open, and it was really hard even to find the ring, to make the calls, to make this reservation for the boat and for the dinner, for all these surprising things. But I can say it was really hard to keep it secret and at the same time to make this happen.
He did it.
I make it happen.
Darcey told People magazine the date was significant because 11 was their manifesting number, that at 11:11 on the clock, they always made a wish. She said it was also in honor of her brother Michael. She wore a custom mermaid gown. Georgi wore a black tux. It was by all accounts a beautiful ceremony. Within months, Darcey was posting about single vibes. Within a year and a half, she was asking God to get her away from her own husband. The wish did not hold. The manifesting number manifested the same ending as the two before it, which, if you had been paying attention, was never going to go any other way. Now, here's what makes this one more than Darcey's story. While Darcey was running her version of this loudly and publicly, Stacey was doing something quieter and in some ways more difficult to watch when you lay it all out. Stacey met Florian Sukaj in 2015 when he messaged her on Instagram. He was 24, she was 40. Albanian model, Connecticut businesswoman, long distance for years. He proposed 10 days after they first met in person. 10 days, and Stacey said yes.
And he proposed fairly quickly, 10 days after we met. In our hotel room, he looked me in the eye, and he asked me to marry him.
Florian came over on a K1 visa in 2020. They married during the pandemic, small ceremony, just an officiant. And within the same year, before they had even settled into being married, Stacey found out Florian had been involved with a Belgian model named Shanti Zohora. Not rumors, that was actual video. She married him anyway.
Is there anything else I need to know? Because I don't want to wake up one morning and see another video, or you in bed with her, or God forbid you.
But nothing happened.
That decision in 2020 is a thing that makes everything else make sense. Not in a good way, in the way where you can trace every subsequent season of therapy, every confessional about not being able to trust him, every resort and recommitment ceremony. All of it goes back to that one moment where Stacey looked at proof and decided love mattered more than what she was seeing. They had a second wedding in November 2022, a proper one, resort in Connecticut, 40 guests, the whole thing, a genuine attempt at a fresh start. And then Stacey got sick.
When I heard the news, he had a stroke, it scared me. I automatically started thinking the worst. What if he's not here?
In early 2024, she had emergency kidney surgery. She was hospitalized. She needed her husband there. Florian was out until 5 a.m., coming home with makeup on his shirt. When Stacey confronted him about it, Florian explained that sometimes people drunky just want to hug you for no reason. People drunky hugging your husband, leaving their makeup behind.
Sitting on the bed in the room with the same girl that posted those pictures.
Stacey took him to 90 Day, the last resort, the franchise's official last chance salon. Therapists, cameras, 6 couples, the understanding that this is the last stop. The therapist on the show told Stacey and Florian directly that their dynamic had a parent-child imbalance, that Stacey was carrying the relationship while Florian operated like someone being managed rather than a partner.
If I was to ask you guys to close your eyes and think of a word, what is the first word that comes to your mind?
He's doing better. It's like me and her doing better, basically.
One word.
He doesn't really want to be around me. I feel like my own husband doesn't even like me.
For me, the therapy will help. I did it for her.
Florian did not take that well. He pushed back. He was resistant to the therapy from the first episode and made little secret of the fact that the whole thing was more Stacey's idea than his. They recommitted at the end. Stacey cried. It looked like something had shifted. It had not shifted. It had just paused. The Happily Ever Season 9 Tell All is where this stops being a television storyline. By the time it was filmed, Florian had moved to Connecticut for a woodworking job. He and Stacey were not living together. In 5 months of marriage, they had seen each other 3 times. Stacey sat across him on the stage and said, "I just don't feel married anymore. I feel like he abandoned me. He abandoned this marriage. And now that he doesn't need me anymore because he's got his citizenship, I feel frauded."
We haven't slept together. Intimate. Enough to where it's concerning. I would say a good 4 months.
Oh, wow.
You know, and he doesn't initiate sex. I'm not really initiating it either. And it's kind of like hard to talk about.
Then she looked at him directly. "You got your citizenship. You don't need me." What those 11 words contain is 5 years of forgiving, documented cheating, emergency kidney surgery with no husband present, makeup on a shirt and a drunk hugging excuse, 2 weddings, being the breadwinner the entire time. He was establishing himself in America. Every therapy session, every recommitment, all of it compressed into 1 sentence on a stage. Darcey was sitting right there watching, and she named what she saw. She looked at both husbands, both checked out, both with their citizenship secured, and called it discard mode. Meanwhile, Darcey had her own version of the same moment. Georgi admitted on the camera he wanted biological children. Darcey at 50 cannot have more children. She told him, "If that's what he really needs and wants in his life, I would rather walk away and leave the rest of my life for me."
I think deep down inside, he truly would want a child one day. And I think that if that's what he really needs and wants in his life, I'd rather walk away.
Don't waste my precious years. Go have your baby. Go find your baby mama.
It's kind of rude.
Yeah, it's not it.
And separately, Georgi had been refusing to pay his share of the rent. Darcey had to add her father to a group text just to get her own husband to pay what he owed. She said, "It's embarrassing that I have to include my dad. But he doesn't mind disappointing me. He just doesn't want to disappoint my dad." Her husband would ignore her but respond to her father in a group text about rent. That is the marriage that came from a manifesting number and a secret Connecticut ceremony. Here is the layer that connects everything, because the collapse of Darcey and Stacey Silva is not just about the men. The brand had its own set of problems that most people have not fully sat on. House of 11, named after their dead brother, supposed to be the thing that outlasted the drama, the real legacy, the proof that there was substance behind the reality TV. A Reddit user named RF writes, posted side-by-side photos comparing House of 11 products to items on bulk wholesale sites like Alibaba. Not similar, not coincidentally alike, essentially the same product with different tags. The comments worked out what appeared to be happening, that the twins were buying wholesale clothing from overseas distributors and labeling it as their own designs. One comment said it plainly, "I understand why they were panicking about getting the HO tags sewn in." The HOE tags sewn in. It does take a long time to get the stuff from China. In 4 seasons of their own show, nobody ever saw either of them sketch a design or sew anything. The most design-related activity shown on camera was looking at fabric they did not end up using. Customer reviews filled in the rest. $80 shipping in a $17 item, a necklace described as feeling like it was worn at Chuck E. Cheese, return requests refused despite following the guidelines, and then they used their platform to promote a Turkish surgery clinic to their own audience. A clinic connected to reports of botched procedures. They pointed their fans there, the same fans who had been watching them cry and heal and grow for years. A brand named after a brother who died too young, with customer reviews like that, sourcing questions like that, and pointing their audience toward a clinic with that kind of reputation. That is a specific kind of betrayal, and he was hiding in plain sight the whole time. This is the part worth actually sitting with. Darcey and Stacey have spent over $20,000 in documented procedures, facelifts, nose jobs, lip lifts, breast augmentations, Brazilian butt lifts, fox eye thread lifts, back of fat removal, all of it done in matching pairs to stay identical, to keep the match set intact. Look at the timing and something becomes visible. Jesse left and the procedures got more serious. Tom left and they flew to Turkey for a full overhaul. Georgi kept leaving and coming back, and each time Darcey returned more altered than before. People watching said the same thing. For years, she was beautiful. Why does she keep doing this to herself? But that question is looking at the wrong thing. The surgeries were not about disliking the face. The timing suggests something else, that somewhere in the logic of these relationships, changing the outside felt like it might change the outcome. Like if the presentation was just right, a man might finally stay past the point where it was convenient to leave. They changed everything they could change. The men left anyway because the men were always going to leave. That was never about the face. That is the hardest receipt in this whole story. Not the Alibaba comparisons, not the citizenship tangles. For women who altered themselves repeatedly, trying to become someone a man could not represent them. And what was it? Darcey and Stacey Silva built something real. The grief of Michael is real. The sisterhood underneath all of it is real. The desire to be loved is completely, genuinely, heartbreakingly real. This is not a story about villains. It is a story about a crack that was always in the foundation, in the relationships, in the brand, in the whole structure, and how every decision for 8 years was about covering that crack rather than addressing it. The wrong man, forgiven and reassigned. The brand with sauce in it, could not fully explain. The surgeries timed the heartbreaks. The show built on dysfunction that eventually stopped being a show and just became the dysfunction. And the audience watched all of it, season after season, rooting for them because the brother was real and the grief was real and everyone wants the story to end differently than it always does. That is what made this particular collapse so hard to watch for the people who were paying attention. It was not sudden. It was not a scandal that came out of nowhere. It was 8 years of the same crack spreading, visible in every tell-all, every airport goodbye, every surgery that followed a heartbreak, every man who left after the paperwork was done. Somewhere in Connecticut right now, Florian is doing woodworking. Georgi is wherever Georgi goes when he stops needing someone. House of 11 is still listing items with $80 shipping. And Darcey Silva, who manifested a wedding date, flew to Amsterdam, cried in every airport in Europe and changed her face more times than anyone was counting, is posting mermaid selfies, waiting for God to tell her what comes. The receipts were always there, every single one, sitting in plain sight for 8 years, dressed up in matching outfits under dead brothers. The audience just needed someone to read them out loud without flinching. Silva Strong. This is alleged. And here is the thing about receipts. They do not care about how good the story sounds. They do not care about the tagline or the matching outfits or how many times you recommitted on camera or how beautiful the mermaid dress was. The receipts just sit there, patient, waiting for someone to finally read them out loud without looking away. Today, someone did.